Today my presentation is on two-factor authentication, but I wanted to start off with a question. How many of you guys know what Duo is? Yeah, it's Bentley's two-factor authentication service. How many of you guys think it's worth the hassle? 1, 2. Well, all of your hands should be up, because two-factor authentication is an effective way to protect your stuff from getting stolen. By definition, two-factor authentication is a way to stop a user's to confirm a user's identity using two knowledge factors, something they know, something they have, or something they are. Easily the most common type of knowledge factor is something they know. This usually comes in the form of passwords for websites or a PIN code for a bank transaction. Since they're supposed to be memorized, or if you don't memorize well, in a secure place, it should be inaccessible to hackers, but it's easy to see how this can be problematic. A study done by the National Cybersecurity Center in the UK determined that 23.2 million accounts in the United Kingdom have the password 123456. In second place is 123456789. So very, very easily hackable. That's why the second and third knowledge factors are used. One of them is something a user has. This type of authentication has existed for centuries in the simple form of a lock and key. Whoever owns the key has access to what is on the other side of the lock, and should be the only person who can access what's on the other side of the lock. In modern terms, though, this usually involves a text or a notification received through a phone or another technological device that the user owns to prove that it is only the user that is trying to access the account, with a password that only the device has access to, functioning as the metaphorical key to the lock. Finally, there is something they are. When I heard this at first, I was really confused, but then I found out that this is put in the terms of a fingerprint into your phone, or Face ID for Apple. It's a physical characteristic that the user has that a hacker can't easily duplicate to get onto your devices. There's a fourth factor that's rarer and mainly used in corporations that's emerging. It's called location-based authentication, basically where a code is placed on a secure wireless network and only people on the wireless network can get into the account. So two-factor authentication is a combination of two of the knowledge factors listed above. Most commonly at Bentley, you put in a password. A third party sends a notification to your cell phone or a different technological device, and you figure out what you have. There are many benefits to the prominence of cell phones specifically in two-factor authentication. Mainly the fact that almost everybody carries your cell phone all the time, right? So it's incredibly convenient. In addition, random passcodes are safer than a static password or a security question that can be found out once and your information be compromised forever. But that's not to say that mobile devices are foolproof. Knowing that text messages are the most common form of two-factor authentication, hackers can send fake messages that look like a real text to bait the user into opening a fake website. It's called phishing with a PH at the beginning. There are other drawbacks too, though. Mobile phones might always be there, but they can die and be stolen as well, rendering the user unable to access their account if this is the case. In addition, hackers just try to use account recovery instead of using the two-factor authentication, which rarely uses mobile phones, so they can bypass it if they so choose. So with the benefits and drawbacks of two-factor authentication, how effective is it from throwing off hackers overall? Proponents of this method say that since the account can't be compromised with a simple password, it can reduce identity theft and online fraud. Pretty logical, makes sense, but in the modern era, people found their way around it because two-factor authentication does have its security concerns. With the rise of phishing attacks mentioned earlier, and other forms of malware that can be installed on computers, hackers can bypass some aspects of two-factor authentication and bring companies and their security back to square one. In modern instances where it is compromised, usually it's not based on the process of two-factor authentication itself, it's based on the coding of websites. Hackers can find weak points in the website and access or break through the two-factor authentication and get into accounts. In May 2017, O2, a German mobile phone provider, had its security broken into. Attackers used phone signals to bypass the SMS part of two-factor authentication. They used phishing, mentioned earlier, to infect the computers of the customers and change their phone number from what the customer had to their own personal phone numbers. They then logged onto their victims' bank accounts because via phishing they were able to get their passwords. And the second step of the authentication was broken through as well because it sent the clarification text when they tried to send a bunch of money into their accounts to the new numbers that the hackers had, so they bypassed the system altogether. Last year, a group of hackers beat Google and Yahoo's two-factor authentication with an automated phishing scheme, just like before, to target journalists in the Middle East. While it took a lot of effort to set up and fool the people, it still impacted thousands of accounts. While these instances are a bit extreme, it just goes to show that no number of authentications means that your account is 100% safe. They can make your account safer than normal, yes, but sometimes you can be hacked or your account compromised, and it won't be your fault. And then to end the presentation, I just want to briefly mention that there is a difference between two-factor and multi-factor authentication. Two-factor only uses 2 of the knowledge factors, while multi-factor can use multiple, or all 3. And this concludes my presentation.